Lesson 5 is our lesson on the availability management process, and it has 5 objectives. First, we'll list the objectives of availability management. Next, we'll learn to distinguish between the reactive and proactive activities of availability management. Third, we'll learn some availability management vocabulary, and we'll also learn the 2 types of things availability management measures. We'll wrap up with a list of responsibilities for the person in the availability manager role. The process of availability management has several objectives. First, we need to ensure that our service availability meets or exceeds what we promised in our SLA. Also, just like capacity management, one of the outputs of this process is to produce and maintain an availability plan, usually annually. Also, this process provides advice and guidance to all other areas of the business and IT on all availability-related issues. And the availability management process also assists with diagnosing and resolving availability-related incidents and problems. And lastly, they take proactive measures to improve the availability of services whenever it's cost justifiable. Availability management has many activities, and this image is taken directly from the availability management chapter of the service design book, so I apologize that it's a little blurry. This slide is showing us that the availability management process has 2 flavors of activities: reactive and proactive. Let's start here at the bottom on the proactive activities, since this is the stuff we'll do before the service goes live in service operation, which means that these boxes include all of the stuff that we'll do in service strategy, here in service design, and also in service transition. You'll see that the availability management process assesses services for risk and then manages the risk by implementing cost-justifiable countermeasures if it's necessary. Availability management also plans and designs for new and changed services, and then it also reviews all new and changed services, and they test all availability and resilience or failover mechanisms. These are all proactive activities, things that happen on the drawing board, or before a service goes live, or before a change to an existing service gets implemented. Up here, we have our reactive activities, meaning things that would take place once a service is up and running during the service operation phase of the life cycle. We'll monitor services and components, and we'll pull reports that show their availability or uptime. And in the event of a service or component failure, we'll investigate it and then hopefully put in a fix for it. We'll talk more about monitoring services and components on the next slide. Here on the right, all data relating to availability management is stored in a database called the AMIS, or Availability Management Information System. Just like a CMIS, or a Capacity Management Information System, this probably isn't a freestanding database, but it's just a way for someone to aggregate all of the availability-related data you have. In here, you'll also see that the availability plan is stored in your AMIS. Your availability plan is similar to your capacity plan in that it comes out annually, and it shows us a snapshot of what our availability numbers look like today, and if the business needs any adjustment to those numbers, we'll document the plan for achieving those. For the exam, you'll need to be able to distinguish between the reactive and the proactive activities of availability management. Keep it easy. Just think to yourself, is this something we would do on the drawing board, or is this something that we would do once the service is in production? You'll also need to know what the acronym AMIS stands for, which is the Availability Management Information System. The availability management process measures 2 different things: the availability or uptime of services and the availability or uptime of components. Let's pretend that IT provides the business with a service called printing, and this service is thoroughly documented in a service level agreement. This SLA will have the language in it that says, "The service of printing must be available from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday. It does not need to be available on the weekends since our office is closed." As long as a user can print to one of these 3 printers, we can say that the service of printing, or the printing service, is up or available. Availability management measures the end-to-end service uptime of printing as a whole, but it also measures the uptime of individual components. So we might say, how long was this individual printer down for? Or how long was this print server out of commission? Let's get some availability management terms and concepts under our belt. Here we have an IT service called printing. And again, this printing service is governed by a service level agreement. And this service level agreement says that everyone in the company needs to be able to print to a black and white printer 15 hours a day from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. 5 days a week. Nobody needs to print on weekends since the office is closed. The printing service, of course, needs components to make it run. So here we have a print server and a few network printers. In this example, let's pretend that we only have one print server for the entire company, which controls all network printers. So if this print server dies, then nobody in the entire company can print. Got it? So here we have a timeline. It's a typical Tuesday afternoon, and according to the SLA, everyone should be able to print right now if they need to. And as of this moment, all systems are up and running, or as we say, they are available. The term availability is the ability of a component or an IT service to perform its agreed function when it's required. So we can ask, is this service or component up and running or usable? Is it fit for use? But something just happened, and suddenly nobody can print. Right this minute, the printing service is down. Our technicians are scrambling to figure out what happened, and it turns out that the print server blue-screened. So the technicians decide that the best course of action to restore the printing service as quickly as possible is to reboot the server, so they do. So here we can use the word maintainability, which is a measure of how quickly and effectively a service, or a component, can be restored to working after it broke. We can ask, how quickly can it be fixed? Which sometimes depends on how many technicians are working at that time of day. If it breaks at 2 in the afternoon, we can probably fix it a little faster than if it broke at 8 o'clock at night, where someone would need to remote in to fix it. So this measurement here can also be used to calculate downtime, or MTRS, mean time to restore service. So the technicians reboot the server, and happiness is restored in the land, and the printing service is now up or available. But the print server went down again the very next week, and once again, nobody can print. So we open up another incident ticket and the technicians spring into action. And now that we have more than one incident in our records, we can now measure the service's reliability, which is how long a service or component can perform its agreed function before it breaks again. We had an incident here, and we had another incident here, so we can say that reliability can be used to calculate the mean time between system incidents, or MTBSI. The printing service isn't considered very reliable if it's breaking once a week. We have one more vocabulary word for you here, serviceability. And we use the term serviceability if a third-party supplier is responsible for the uptime of a particular component or a service. We might measure Harry's House of T3s in terms of their serviceability, or how well they can meet the terms of their contract. We include this term here as part of availability management because you'll most likely have availability, maintainability, and reliability numbers in your underpinning contracts that you would have with your third-party vendor. During the service design phase, and especially here in availability management, is where our service level manager is talking to our customers about their availability needs and targets, and they're hammering out the availability language in their SLA. So here we're going to ask our customers what their uptime expectations or needs are. And almost every customer, when you ask them the first time, will say, I expect the service to be up 100% of the time, which is pretty much a theoretical impossibility. The closest thing most mortals can achieve is 5 nines, or 99.999% uptime, which means that for a 24/7/365 service, you're allowed a total of 5 minutes and 45 seconds of downtime per year. That's total. The key to achieving 5 nines is redundancy, redundancy, redundancy. But redundancy isn't cheap. So when your customer asks for this super high availability, make sure that you tell them how much it's going to cost. Depending on your type of business, there's a pretty good chance that your customer will get sticker shock, and then they'll finally agree that 95 or 98% uptime is okay. Or, alternately, if you're in the business of, say, air traffic control, you'll probably have a darn good business justification for why 5 nines is necessary, and you'll pony up the money for it. We don't want planes falling out of the sky. You need to remember that the customer's perception of downtime could be pretty different from the IT department's perception of downtime. If a user can't print starting at 2 p.m., but they don't pick up the phone to report it to the service desk until 3 p.m., IT's downtime clock only started ticking at 3 when we first found out about it, but to the user, they couldn't print since 2. Or, oftentimes IT gets the broken components fixed, but the communication back to the end user community that it's been fixed takes a while. So if the user doesn't know that the service has been restored, it's still perceived as being down. This can get sticky, and your customers might take exception with the availability numbers that are reported during the service review. So we need to be really specific in our SLA language. Another thing to consider when coming up with availability numbers is, what does it mean to have 98% uptime for your printing service when that 2% of downtime happened when payroll was trying to print everyone's paychecks? Sure, your numbers might show a 98% availability for the month, but nobody's getting a high five here. IT and the business must make sure that they are both absolutely clear about the interpretation of the availability metrics. And this is why I stressed so much during the service level management lesson that the language of your SLA must be clear, unambiguous, and easily understandable. So even though your SLAs are contracts, they should never be written in legalese, or people are just going to get bogged down and confused. Let's conclude this lesson by talking about the role of the availability manager. The person in this role is the process owner of the availability management process, so they have the usual DEMI duties that all process owners have. If you need to be reminded what DEMI or DEMI stands for and how we apply the DEMI acronym to availability management, you can look in the book that came with this DVD. In addition to being the process owner, the availability manager ensures that all current existing services are delivering the levels of availability that we promised in our SLAs. It also ensures that new services are being designed to meet the availability requirements, which is why the availability management process appears here in the service design book. However, since availability management has some reactive activities, someone with an availability management hat on will investigate and diagnose incidents and problems that are related to availability management once we get to service operation. This person will also create and maintain an availability plan, which is similar to the capacity plan in that it comes out once a year. They'll also assess system changes for how they might impact availability once they go live. Once the service is up and running in service operation, they'll monitor and report on the level of availability or uptime that we achieved. They'll provide those numbers to the service level manager so they can crunch the numbers and then present them to the customer during the service review. Also, when we have the time, money, and resources, the availability manager will proactively improve service availability and will optimize the IT infrastructure to increase our service and component availability. This roles slide wraps up our lesson on availability management. Let's move on to lesson number 6, which is IT service continuity management.